Cindy raised her hand. So Cindy, go ahead.
You mentioned, and I might have missed that part while driving. You mentioned one of your strategies is to make it easier for homeowners to own their home. How did you do that? Do you bake into the financial model? What specifically are things that you have done and that actually worked to bring your occupancy from 50% to, let's say, 90%?
Thank you for the question, Cindy. We try to make it as simple as possible. We don't even, it's funny, I want to bring up a light example. We don't even want to leave the choice of colors for a bedroom to be a dispute between two partners or spouses and whatnot. So everything is laid out turnkey. And more importantly, I think what I was emphasizing is that we make it simple, Cindy, by purchasing the home ourselves, transporting it, and setting it up, installing it, making it just turnkey ready, staging it if it makes sense to stage, so that it's turnkey ready. And then more importantly, or most important, we'll also, where it's appropriate, we'll also provide financing for the buyer. Because our main goal is to create lot income, to have the real estate perform. The home sale is a secondary aspect. And even if it meant not making as much margin on the home, although we do well on the homes as well, but even if it meant a lower margin, that's okay too, right? Because the main purpose, the main goal is to get from 50% occupancy to 95 or 100. So we make it as seamless as possible and easy as possible this way.
That's right. Now, do you consider school district or all this, if it's family friendly? Do you consider the demographic?
Absolutely. Communities, great question. Communities are divided typically by family parks versus senior parks. And senior parks, you have to be 55 plus typically to be able to apply as a primary resident. It doesn't mean you won't see younger people in the park, by the way, but typically you'll see mostly seniors. And we look at the demographics. We look at basic, as we do our due diligence. I remember as a kid, my father and I used to go drive a town, and just the anecdotal stuff, just the small things. Cindy, is there a supermarket? Is there a hospital? Is there a bank or two nearby? Can people get the essentials? What about employment? Is the employment driven by a single employer? What is the source of income? If it's retirees, that's different. But if there's a revenue driven by a base, a military base, for example, or a large factory, or like I see in Texas sometimes, oil, the fracking businesses, where you go from 100% occupancy to 0% overnight. And so those are the kind of things you need to look for.
Thank you. This is fascinating. I'm learning so much about the mobile home park community, this asset class, and how it is recession resistant. So thank you very much for sharing what you know.
Thank you. Thank you, Cindy.
Thanks, Cindy. All right, Brandon, you up next.
Awesome.
Unmute.
Thanks, Tim. Great presentation. I'm always fascinated by these conversations, and we have a mobile home community specialist on. This is a fascinating asset class. I come primarily from a multifamily perspective, and it seems fairly common for folks that are stuck in the multifamily space to see mobile home parks as more of a cash flow play versus an appreciation play. Do you find that to be the case, and what ways do you primarily look to force appreciation in a mobile home community?
Oh, thank you, Brandon. Thank you for the question. Back in the day, I think it was equally, in my just informal recollection, it was equally compelling in terms of cash flow and equity or appreciation. The cash flow, frankly, is less now, right? As you can imagine, as it is probably in every space. But it is still, I think, substantially more cash flow. We still see cash flow compared to other asset classes. It's just reduced from where we were, let's say, 10, 20 years ago. The appreciation is really, I think, what this is about, and it's just like any other compounding business model. This is about the long term. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's a get-rich-slow business, but it works. It's steady. And Tim said earlier, and I think you just alluded to, it's certainly not glamorous or Hollywood or sexy, but I think boring has become the new appealing thing now, right? And we've always been boring.
I like boring. Boring is good. But
Yeah.
I don't think that's necessarily a fair characterization. I see a very well maintained and well manicured and attractive mobile home community as being as sexy as anything else. You can see some of these communities that they have good standards for the way the homes look. There's cohesion between the different houses. You go in there and you see a beautiful community that's got some real value to it. Obviously, they're not all that way, but I think there's real potential. But which leads to my other question: when you go into to acquire a property, is it your intention to find something that is already somewhat in that vein of being a nice cohesive community and is maybe underpriced or undervalued, and to bring that up to market? Or do you go in and find a community that might be a little less cosmetically appealing and rehab it and reform it and make it into a beautiful community like that?
Oh wow, great question, Brandon. Thank you for the question. And so I think I'll answer your question in two ways. One, what I'm doing to be specifically to answer your question, but secondly, I think for the audience, it's really about where you are in your journey, right? And where you are in terms of how much you want to take on in terms of actual daily management intensive levels and whatnot, and effort and risk versus, let's say, early on, maybe you're taking on the real difficult value add plays because you really want to have that upside in the cash flow, the asset value increase. But then later, your appetite for risk decreases, and as you age, you want to focus more on retirement and whatnot. So now you're taking less risk, and you're taking more stabilized communities where you still have upside, but you don't have as much risk and effort involved. And so that's what we experienced as a family in our journey. For Rights 360 Ventures, I'm going to look at deals, and I still continue to look at deals where, like we did as a family, where there's value add opportunities. And value add comes in different ways. It may be cosmetics, it may be capex renovations in the park and cleaning it up. It may be value infill, we call it, and putting homes in. It may be something else. I'm looking at a community right now where it's 100% occupied, and there's probably little value add I can do in terms of cosmetics. But there's a nuance in the rent control ordinance that works in the favor of landlords that's been validated by another community owner, where he actually was able to get a huge rent increase, a substantial increase that exponentially increased his asset value just by leveraging that rent control ordinance in the landlord's favor. As crazy as this sounds, look for different value add strategies. It's not limited to just any of the ones I described here. There's others as well that we look at, and I hope that helps.
Outstanding. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
Brandon. Okay, Bob, go ahead. Unmute.
Yeah, Nasser. Pleasure meeting you. I had a couple questions in that regards. What kind of amenities can you or do you provide to raise the value and increase your income, not necessarily from rent, but providing other services?
Thank you, Bob, for asking. Some of the traditional ones or historical ones, we're adding things like a dog walk, a dog park, or a playground. The basics that many communities already have, and if they don't, those are things that could be considered, are a clubhouse, a pool. Any community that's, I think, 3-star or above would have those. I have a 5-star community now. I think Brandon made me think of it earlier when he was talking about how some communities are just amazing. We have a 5-star community now that we have bocce courts. We have man-made lakes. We have tennis courts. We have there was a store on site. It's not operative now. It was there. It was operative decades ago, but we may consider opening that up again. And of course, we have all the standard amenities like the clubhouse and the pools and whatnot. But yes, I hope I answered your question.
Do you do anything with RVs on some of your locations, or are you involved in any in RV parks?
My involvement, no. The first answer is no, not on the existing manufactured housing communities. I am open to RV parks, not for the traditional RV park model. I've been there and done that. I don't necessarily want the daily headaches of running an RV park in the traditional business model. I am looking at RV parks for this permanent residence type model, where we go and acquire a community, an RV park, and actually have long-term residents in there who, since COVID and since hybrid work and whatnot has become a thing, I think more and more people are open to living in tiny homes, ADUs, park model trailers, and whatnot. So I think there's a real compelling opportunity to purchase RV parks and convert them.
Are you doing anything besides mobile home trailers as far as in the, like you said, in the tiny home space with some of your locations? Or I've been working with a group out of Las Vegas that builds stone houses, and we were looking at putting something together for the victims for Helene up in Western Carolinas, that kind of thing. So are you looking at any of that?
I haven't done any of that. I've been approached by a couple of different folks. I'd love to talk to you about it sometime. If it's not the right fit for me, which it may or may not be, only because, frankly, Bob, the only reason I haven't done it, I think, is more or less because there's enough low-hanging fruit for me to acquire existing deals where I'm already very comfortable with the business model. But I think it's an exciting space. I think it's very compelling, and I know of a few people who've approached me about it. So if that's something you want to talk about offline, I'd love to try to help or connect you with others who are doing it.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, because I wanted there's some other things I'd like to talk to you about in regards to some of the stuff I'm doing over here with NCREA. As far as, are there any other particular incomes? The only thing I can think of would be like internet. There's ACN, which lets you or sell the internet. Are there any other tools like that where you can generate revenue?
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought up the internet or Wi-Fi. That's certainly one. A lot of these communities are the older ones that have private utilities. So you have private well water and septic tanks on site. And those costs have historically been paid or traditionally been paid by the community owner. And so there's an opportunity to pass through those expenses to the residents. The states will allow you to do that. And that is another compelling profit center. But things like the Wi-Fi, the smaller things, even like application fees or some of these other services that you can provide, personal property insurance, where you might be able to bundle that and profit where it's legal. So yeah, there's other avenues.
What do you do much with pet fees and pets in that area?
We haven't charged much in pet fees, no. But
Because that was one of the things I was thinking of. If I actually own the house, why are you charging me a pet fee? It's nice having a place to walk the dog or that kind of thing, but how would you do that? So that was one thing I was thinking of when you mentioned pets and that kind of thing. What has been your findings when somebody was to move out of one of your trailers and they owed you rent or they just quit paying and moved? How do you handle that if you have a mortgage on that trailer?
Oh, thank you for asking. It's a great question, and I'm glad you brought it up because it's something I should have covered. Bob, I don't wish ill for any resident, but frankly, if it ever happens, and it happens seldomly, when it does happen, it's actually a windfall. It's a blessing in disguise, if I can say that without being too selfish, only because it gives us the opportunity to just sell the home again. And the rental income doesn't ever stop, even if somebody stops performing. People ask me, what's your bad debt rate? What's your collection rate in this industry or this asset class? And I always want to I feel like I have to give some number because if I say zero, people will think I'm just naive or lying. And so my official number is 3 to 5% because that's what I've seen in terms of defaults over the 45 years of residents defaulting on lot rent. That said, my collection is 100%. And what I mean by that is these homes, it's cost prohibitive to move them, right? And so they're not moving, which means there's an asset there that you can place a lien on as the community owner. So ultimately, you're going to get paid. And usually, the only time I've seen a default is unfortunately when somebody passes away and the heirs are not there to claim it because, like I said, we typically have tenants for life, and so it's very rare. Who's going to give up $100,000 manufactured home for defaulting on $1,000 lot rent? Right? It just doesn't make sense. We rarely see it.
I'm over here in North Carolina, and I know that they have some age rules from the standpoint you can't move a trailer. I forget whether it's 20 years or 30 years. If it's been on a particular, even though you might still have its wheels, there are some restrictions in the Carolinas as far as moving the older trailers. So if somebody had purchased it and decided, okay, I'm just going to quit and leave and disappear or whatever, you may not be able to move it, or they may not be able to move it, that kind of thing.
That's
So
right. No, but
that
actually still turns into a blessing, Bob, because we can actually what you can do is in California, for example, and it may be similar in North Carolina, but it was 1976 that was the cutoff. So from pre-1976 homes are not up to HUD code, excuse me. 76 and beyond meet HUD code standards. So anything pre-1976, sure, in California it makes sense to demolish it and maybe just as opposed to transporting it, but just demolishing and putting a new home in. Whereas from 76 onwards, it actually, if you inherit a home like that, or for some reason you have to take over a home like that, it may make sense. In most cases, we just upgrade that home and renovate it and then sell it.
Gotcha. How do you find that's a lot of people right now, we're looking for distressed properties in multifamily. How do you find those trailer parks that may be distressed that you can make a deal that with, let's just say, easier?
I wish I had a magic wand or a great answer for you, Bob. It's all the above that you probably have heard over the decades in any other asset class, from direct mail, which is still effective because we have a lot of baby boomers who own these communities still and check the mail. traditional sources like you would expect online, or brokers and bankers and professional advisors and whatnot. But I would also say for me, it's been helpful to keep relationships and with people who've lived on site or work on site. So the pool man, the gardener, the resident that's been there for 30 years who has an ear with the owner. It's all those people that can bring you and source deals. So it's just constantly working. I don't believe too much in off what do you call these pocket listings or off market listings. I don't know if they really exist as much as people would like to think, or as we'd like to think they do. But I think it's actually making these kinds of real physical efforts, raw efforts to reach out. I hope that answered your question.
Okay. I appreciate it. I'll pass the one on to next one. See,
Thank you, Bob.
Edwin, go ahead. You have a lot of questions, Ali. This is really good.
I love it.
Good
This is great.
information here. I'm curious about, you mentioned you're actually in the senior space as well with these types of parks.
Yes.
So that's the space I'm in. I'm curious about regionally with these types of homes. Is there any concerns, especially south with hurricanes or any that would be cost prohibitive, if you will, for something like this? I know we have parks here in the Houston, South Texas area. I've seen them, but from an investment standpoint, is that something that you would consider, or it has to be in a more moderate climate area?
Thank you for the question, Edwin. I'm spoiled out here in California, so it's easy for me to say. But statistically, on behalf of I think collectively the industry would tell you, because there's so many institutional investors, so many people, private equity groups, and so many people like yourself investing all over the country in this asset class, regardless of the potential natural disasters. And they're all in it by choice. They're all doing it anyway. And I think the argument is that no. The short answer is no. It's not a deterrent. Yes, those things can exist. I think the stigma and the whole reputation of mobile homes flying around in a tornado doesn't help us. But in reality, I think our homes do just as well, if not better, than some stick-built homes do. And it's unfortunate that we've gotten that branding with the bites on the local news that get the viewership. In reality, I think overall, especially when going back to the earlier point that I made about at least 50 units, ideally 100 units or more, and when you have the kind of economies of scale, I think you'll be fine, to weather these storms. And look, we have issues across the country, across the world, right? Here we deal with fires and earthquakes. There you might be dealing with hurricanes or tornadoes or whatever. It's just the part of cost of doing business, and insurance is getting ridiculous. It's eating into our pocketbooks, but the answer is still yes. It's still very compelling to, in my opinion, to proceed.
And my other question was, again, going back to senior housing, are you purchasing communities that are already set up that way for 55 and over? Because I can't imagine taking over a community and having to convert it to that, because you would have to move people out, essentially. Just kind of curious about that. And then I didn't catch this, but it sounds like you're financing the purchase of the home to the resident. Is that because you're in the first lien position in case they default, or let's say in a senior housing community, they pass on?
Yes. So the answer to your first question is, you're right. I have never tried to convert a family park or a community to a senior. We're typically acquiring 55 plus. And personally, I do prefer those, by the way. There's just, as you can imagine, a lot less headaches in a 55 plus community for all the obvious reasons, I think. And we can expand on that if you want. But the second point, can you rephrase it again for me? I'm going to address it. Your second question.
Yeah, I was curious about, the home is purchased by the resident and then they're leasing the land from you. But are you financing that home, the purchase of that home?
Yeah, so historically, when there was no financing available, we were financing 100% of our buyers through a CFL license, a consumer finance lender license in the state of California. Now, each state varies in regulations, so I say check with your professional advisors whether it's permitted or not and what license and regulations you need to do that. But yes, we still, in some cases, offer where we can, and I encourage it, because it's, again, part of the turnkey solution that I described to Cindy earlier, where, providing this complete package, right, to make it so easy for a resident to move in and get your lot rents up quickly. So yes, we were providing financing, and I'll tell you this, Edwin, it may be of interest for you and others listening. Even today, primary lenders in the space. I think the market rate on mobile homes or manufactured homes is about 9 to 11% interest per annum on those homes.
Yeah.
And when you offer secondary financing, if you do in some cases where this is where I think where people like yourself may still be able to help somebody, for example, where they're getting a loan for the home, but they don't necessarily have financing for the transportation or the setup cost may not be included with the purchase. And so they want to move in, they can afford the monthly rent or the monthly payment and all of those things, but they just can't afford that up front. Maybe you're able to offer financing on that part of it. And I would say that in our industry for private secondary financing, the interest rates would be above what the primary lenders are. So you're looking
I would
at
imagine.
Yeah, historically we used to see about 13 to 16% as average. I would say you're at least above 11 right now. At least 11 to 13, but I know there's some lenders that charge more than that. And really it's about making it, I think the key point, as important as interest rates are and not to be predatory and whatnot, I think the key concern from a resident is really what is my total cost, including lot rent, home payment, and any other expenses. What's my total cost compared to renting somewhere else? And I try to be 10 to 15% below what it would cost to rent another home similar to mine, an apartment or a regular stick-built home. 10 to 15% below that, it's almost a no-brainer for the resident.
That brings up my last question, and this will be my last, is would you ever consider ground up construction of a community, or is that too cost prohibitive? That'd be too expensive.
Until yesterday, I would have said no. I wouldn't consider it. But today, going forward, the landscape is changing. And particularly out of state, in I think states like Texas and Florida, where the demand is huge and the supply is super low, where the red tape is not as bad, I would not as difficult. I know there's people doing it now, and I think I think there's rumblings, and even in California, because there's such a huge demand. But I would be cautiously optimistic about it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Edwin. All right, CB, go ahead.
Is it for me? Yes. Okay. Oh,
Hold on,
sorry.
it's CB, not Cindy.
Okay.
CB, you go first and then Cindy go after.
Thank you so much. Nasir, I really enjoy your presentations. So I have a business partner really want to do prefab homes in California. So I have a few questions. Number one is, where do you have in California? And for someone who want to do that in California, what advice would you give them?
Oh, wow. Okay. So thank you very much for the questions. And I'm so excited that you want to invest in California. That excites me. We have communities up and down the state. I've lived up and down Highway 99 and I-5 all my life, just driving up and down those two arteries or freeways north and south. And so our furthest south community is in the San Diego market, and our furthest north is up in Mount Shasta area. And so we've been up and down and seen all of the different markets in California over the last 45 years. For you, I would suggest tapping into the local players, the local brokers, local bankers, professional advisors. Reach out to us if you'd like, or any other syndicator that's specializing in California. I'd be happy to help you.
Is there anything you would do differently because it's California?
That's a great question. Look, everything is just on steroids here, so to speak, right? Everything costs more, everything is worth more, the income is higher, the asset values are higher too as a result. And so I think the thing you have to prepare, if I'm looking at 200 units in the Southeast, it's a very different acquisition than 200 units in California in terms of cost and risk, and all of, not necessarily the risk as much, but I guess what I'm driving at is sustainability. So I want to make sure that you're well prepared for that acquisition, because it's a much more difficult process just because of the dynamics here in terms of cost and red tape and all of those things. So I think it's just a matter of being more strategically prepared in your due diligence and buying right. It's important everywhere. It's more important here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cindy, go ahead.
Yes. One last question about cost segregation. Do you do cost segregation for your mobile home community?
Yes.
Okay. So you do that for for the accelerated depreciation.
Yes, absolutely. We had an acquisition just last year, and the cost seg was amazing with the new bill. So we benefit, and people don't think of it as much because we don't own the homes. They think, how do you benefit? But you'd be surprised how much there is in tax savings and benefits from your underground utilities, from the amenities there, the road, the pavement, the asphalt, all these things you can write off. And so we absolutely do benefit from cost seg.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. There was a couple questions. Percy left, but his question was, do you implement RUBS or do the residents put all utilities in their name?
We prefer the residents have the utilities in their name. Sure, you could probably have that could also be another profit center and maybe some kind of surpass charge, but I don't like the risk and the headache involved with it. So I prefer sub-metered and direct billed. Where we can avoid it, we certainly manage it, but otherwise we prefer not to.
Gotcha. There was another question from Arun earlier. Would be curious to know what the lot rents and cap rates back in the day versus now.
Thanks for that question. Oh, I love talking about that because we used to, and by the way, I'll even hit lot purchase prices. I was able to buy lots in California back in the day at $25,000 a lot. And the high end today, I think, is about $150,000 a lot. Rents were, like you see in other markets, I think, as low as $300. Now, even in tertiary markets, they're at least about, I think, $600 a month. But in primary markets, if you're getting true rents, lot rents can be as much as $2,000 or $2,500 if you're getting the true lot rent.
Wow.
Yes. And now rent control oftentimes prohibits that. The community I told you about in San Diego, if I was getting true market rent, it would be about $2,500 to $3,000 lot rent. But I'm not getting that because of rent control over there. But there are communities that are getting their true market value rents. And so there's just been a huge change. I think the question also asked about cap rates. I remember seeing cap rates in tertiary markets, again, in California back in the day, as high as 12 to 16%. I would say the high end right now is probably 8 to 12%. And you can still get that, which is pretty sexy, but you're going to probably be limited to the tertiary markets and the higher risk deals, the 1-star, 2-star deals.
I see. Okay. Tarun said that in Pennsylvania, they're getting $350 to $450 lot rents.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Okay. And then CB had a follow-up question. If building something new, what is your estimate cost per house?
Oh, wow. So I would say let's say per pad instead of per house, because the house, again, is a supplemental add-on if we decide to do that or not. But and I can address the house too. But anyway, for the pad in California, it would be ridiculous, right? That's why it's been cost prohibitive. I don't have the exact answer, but my guess would be somewhere around $125,000 a pad.
Wow.
And so when you can buy existing communities with already a proof of concept that people want to live there because it's 50% occupied, that's why it just makes no sense, right? It doesn't make any sense to build when you can buy something at or 90 or 100,000 even that is already half full. But that cost is probably dramatically lower elsewhere. I don't know what that number is. I would guess it's probably well under 100K, even in the other compelling markets like Dallas, like Texas and Florida. But I can get answers for whoever asked that question if you reach out to me and get you more specific answers.
Ali, what's the difference between this manufactured home versus a modular built home? Are they very different, or how different?
There's nuances of differences, and I don't pretend to know exactly all of the differences, but I think the main difference is that our home is manufactured in a factory and transported in whole to the site, whereas a modular home is still its components. They're modular components that are brought but still constructed. The rest of the construction occurs on site. And I think that's the fundamental difference.
Got it. Okay. Very good. We're going to wrap up this part of our show. And then, so let me wrap up for our podcast recording here. And then we'll put you guys into your small breakout session. So, Ali, thank you so much for this awesome interview. And I love how it's such an interesting topic that a lot of the participants asking a lot of questions. There's obviously a demand for knowledge and information around this asset class, and so I like that. Thank you. Really appreciate your generosity coming on this show and answering everybody's questions.
Thank you so much, Tim. Thank you for your energy, your passion, and for what you do for all of us here with this platform. I appreciate everybody. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Before we put you guys into breakout sessions, let's do a group picture real quick. Everybody turn on your cameras. Let's do a group picture. Turn on your cameras. You're gonna do a group picture real quick. Yes. All right. Yeah. Okay. Louis. Didn't see you earlier. All right, buddy. Okay. Ali, we flex to take our group pictures on this show.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go.
There you go. There you go. Are you guys, everybody ready? 3, 2, 1. Yay!